After one day, I gave it up. I couldn't do it. I thought, I'm dyslexic. Damn this dyslexia. I've got to figure this out. Tom Cruise, the man who once left the world in awe with heart-stopping action sequences, now seems to be quietly falling apart in ways few people notice. After decades of pushing himself beyond the limits of life and death on screen, he appears to be slowly slipping under the weight of it all. Injuries from dangerous stunts, like that reckless cliff jump in Mission Impossible, have taken a toll, his body drained, his breathing shorter, each step now a struggle. But the cruelest pain isn't physical, it's the emptiness that has crept into the life of a man once celebrated by millions. He placed his faith in love 3 times, with Mimi Rogers, Nicole Kidman, and Katie Holmes, 3 chapters that all ended in silence. Each marriage began with hope but closed in heartbreak, leaving him standing alone in a vast, empty house, the echoes of what once was fading into nothing. It all began with Scientology, the belief he once trusted as a path to salvation, but which gradually became an invisible prison controlling his life, his relationships, his choices, even his role as a father. His daughter Suri has grown distant, her once familiar presence now replaced with something unrecognizable. Nights find him alone, staring out over Los Angeles, asking himself what he has lost. His iconic smile now feels strained, as though the light behind it has dimmed. At 63, when most slow down, he keeps running, climbing, pushing himself as if trying to outrun the loneliness chasing him. Before he was a global star, he was just a quiet, fragile boy born on July 3, 1962, in Syracuse, New York, into a family filled with hardship. His childhood was marked by fear, an abusive father, constant instability, and poverty. His mother worked tirelessly to support 4 children, while young Tom delivered newspapers barefoot in the freezing cold just to help buy milk. The family moved constantly, leaving him unable to form lasting friendships. At school, he was bullied and mocked, especially because of his dyslexia, which made learning feel impossible. He grew up believing he was stupid, a feeling that stayed with him for years. After his parents divorced, he became the emotional support for his family. He briefly sought refuge in faith, entering a Catholic seminary, only to be expelled after a mistake that left him feeling rejected once again. At 18, with just $500 and a dream, he moved to New York, working odd jobs by day and chasing auditions by night. Rejection followed him relentlessly, but he refused to give up. His breakthrough came in the early 1980s, and with risky business, he became a sensation. Yet success didn't erase his struggles. He developed his own methods to overcome dyslexia, memorizing scripts through sheer determination. As his career soared, with films like Rain Man, Born on the 4th of July, A Few Good Men, and Jerry Maguire, he proved himself not just a star, but a force of dedication and emotional depth. Still, behind the fame, his personal life remained fragile. His first marriage to Mimi Rogers introduced him to Scientology, which slowly tightened its grip on his life. Their relationship ended in divorce, leaving emotional scars. His second marriage to Nicole Kidman brought a sense of belonging and family, but over time, the same forces created distance, leading to a painful separation in 2001. His third marriage to Katie Holmes began like a fairy tale but ended abruptly, with Holmes leaving to protect their daughter, Suri. Since then, his relationship with Suri has faded into distance, a loss deeper than any physical injury. Despite everything, Tom never stopped pushing himself physically. From breaking his ankle during a rooftop stunt to enduring countless injuries, he continues to perform at extreme levels. His body bears the marks of years of relentless effort, torn muscles, broken ribs, lingering pain, but he refuses to slow down. Even as age begins to show, he keeps moving, driven by something deeper than ambition, perhaps a need to escape the silence within. Today, Tom Cruise lives in a paradox, a global icon admired by millions, yet a man carrying profound loneliness. His life raises a haunting question: can fame and success ever truly heal the wounds of the past? Or do those wounds remain, hidden beneath the spotlight, shaping a person in ways the world may never fully understand? Even now, in the quieter moments between films and public appearances, that question seems to follow Tom Cruise like a shadow that never quite disappears. The cameras still capture the confident stride, the carefully controlled smile, the presence of a man who appears untouchable. But behind that image is someone who has spent a lifetime outrunning something far more persistent than fear, himself. The discipline that made him a legend has also become a kind of armor, something he wears constantly to keep the deeper cracks from showing. There are moments, rare and unguarded, when that armor seems to thin. In interviews, his voice occasionally softens, his words slowing as if he is choosing them carefully to avoid stepping into places he would rather not revisit. He speaks about work with intensity, about filmmaking with passion, about the importance of pushing limits, but almost never about the things that hurt the most. It's as if the only way he knows how to survive is to keep moving forward, never stopping long enough for the past to catch up. The irony is impossible to ignore. The man who has spent decades mastering control over his body, his performances, his public image, has faced some of life's most uncontrollable losses. Love that couldn't last, a family that couldn't stay together, a daughter who grew up beyond his reach. These are not problems that can be solved with discipline or rehearsed into perfection. They exist in a space where even someone like him has no script to follow. And yet he continues. Not just because of obligation or expectation, but because stopping might mean confronting the silence he has been avoiding for so long. Every stunt, every role, every new project becomes more than just work. It becomes motion, momentum, a way to keep the emptiness at a distance. The danger, the risk, the physical pain, they are tangible, understandable. Unlike the quiet weight of regret, they can be faced, endured, and overcome. Those who have worked closely with him often describe a man of intense focus, someone who gives everything to the moment in front of him. But they also notice the solitude. Between takes, between scenes, there is a stillness around him, a kind of distance that no amount of success seems to bridge. It's not the loneliness of someone forgotten, but of someone who has experienced so much that connection itself has become complicated. Time, of course, does not pause for anyone. At 63, even a body trained to its limits begins to resist. Recovery takes longer, pain lingers, and the line between resilience and vulnerability becomes thinner. Yet Tom Cruise continues to challenge that line, almost as if proving, perhaps to the world, perhaps to himself, that he is still in control, still capable, still unbreakable. But beneath that determination lies a quieter truth. Even the strongest people feel the weight of time, of choices, of everything that cannot be undone. And maybe that is where the real story lives. Not in the explosions, the box office records, or the global fame, but in the quiet moments no one sees. The moments where a man sits alone with his thoughts, looking back at a life that gave him everything the world could offer, yet still left him searching for something more personal, more lasting, more real. Because in the end, the question isn't whether Tom Cruise is still a legend. That has already been decided. The real question is whether, somewhere beyond the spotlight and the noise, he will ever find the peace that has eluded him for so long. Perhaps that peace was never something he could chase in the same way he chased success. Because success, for Tom Cruise, was always something concrete, something he could measure, build, perfect, and ultimately conquer. Peace is different. It does not respond to effort in the same way. It doesn't reward control, nor does it yield to discipline. And for someone who built his entire life on mastering both, that may be the most difficult truth to accept. There are signs, subtle but present, that somewhere deep inside, he understands this. The way he lingers just a second longer in silence before answering certain questions. The way his eyes, still sharp and focused, sometimes carry a distance that words can't fully explain. These are not the marks of weakness, but of someone who has lived intensely, someone who has felt both the highest peaks and the quietest, most personal losses. People often assume that a life like his must be filled with constant excitement, endless validation, and a sense of fulfillment that never fades. But the reality appears far more complicated. When the applause ends and the cameras turn away, What remains is not the character he played, but the person underneath it all. And that person, like anyone else, carries memories, regrets, questions, and the weight of choices that shaped everything. There is something almost poetic in the way his story has unfolded. A boy who once felt powerless grew into a man who could control almost everything around him, except the things that mattered most. A man who learned to perform fearlessness on screen while quietly battling uncertainties within. A figure admired for his strength, yet shaped by moments of vulnerability that the world rarely sees. And still, he keeps going. Not because everything is resolved, but because movement has become his language, his way of existing in a world that has given him both extraordinary gifts and undeniable pain. Every new film, every daring stunt, every public appearance is another step forward, another moment where he chooses action over stillness. Maybe that's the closest thing to peace he has found, not in stopping, not in fully healing, but in continuing despite everything. In waking up each day and deciding, consciously or not, that the story isn't over yet. Because as long as he keeps moving, there is still something ahead of him. Another role, another challenge, another chance, however small, to feel something different, something lighter, something closer to the peace he has been searching for all along. And perhaps, in the quiet spaces between all that motion, in the moments where he allows himself to simply exist without expectation or performance, he might begin to understand that peace was never something he needed to chase at all, but something he had to learn how to let in. And if that realization ever truly settles within him, it may not arrive as something dramatic or life-altering, but as something far quieter. Not a breakthrough, not a defining moment, but a gradual softening of the weight he has carried for so long. The kind of change that doesn't announce itself, but slowly reshapes the way a person breathes, thinks, and remembers. Because for most of his life, Tom Cruise has lived in extremes: extreme success, extreme discipline, extreme risk. Everything has been amplified, intensified, pushed to the edge. But peace does not exist at the edge. It exists somewhere in the middle, in the stillness he has spent so many years avoiding. It might come to him in unexpected ways. In a conversation that doesn't feel rehearsed. In a moment where he isn't trying to prove anything to anyone. In the simple act of letting go of the need to be constantly in motion. And perhaps, most importantly, in accepting that not every loss can be reversed, not every relationship can be repaired, and not every question will have an answer. There is a certain kind of strength in that acceptance, a quieter strength, far removed from the one the world has always celebrated in him. Not the strength of hanging from airplanes or leaping across rooftops, but the strength of sitting with the past without trying to outrun it. Of acknowledging pain without letting it define everything that comes after. For a man who has spent decades constructing an image of control, this kind of surrender may feel unfamiliar, even uncomfortable. But it is also where something new can begin. Not a reinvention, not another version of the star the world already knows, but something more human. More grounded, more real. And maybe that is the final chapter that has yet to be written, not one filled with spectacle or headlines, but one defined by quiet understanding. A chapter where he no longer needs to chase validation or escape silence, where the noise of the world fades just enough for him to hear something else entirely, himself. Because in the end, beyond the fame, the legacy, and the countless moments that made him larger than life, there is still a person searching for the same thing everyone else is, a sense of belonging, of meaning, of peace that doesn't depend on anything outside of who they are. And if he ever finds that, it won't be because he ran faster, climbed higher, or pushed harder than ever before. It will be because, for the first time in a very long time, he finally allowed himself to stop. And in that stillness, if it ever truly comes, there will be no audience waiting, no cameras capturing the moment, no applause to confirm that it mattered. It will be quiet, almost invisible to the world. But perhaps that is what will make it real. Because for the first time, it won't be something performed. It will simply be lived. He may look back then, not with regret as sharp as it once was, but with a kind of understanding that only time can bring. The boy who felt small and afraid, the young man desperate to prove his worth, the global star who carried the weight of expectations on his shoulders. They were never separate versions of him. They were all part of the same journey, each one trying, in their own way, to find stability in a life that never quite stood still. And maybe he will begin to see that not everything was lost, that even in the fractures, there were moments of truth. Love that, even if it didn't last, was once real. Connections that, even if broken, still left their mark. A daughter who, no matter how distant, remains a part of him in ways that time cannot fully erase. There is a quiet kind of healing in that perspective, not one that rewrites the past, but one that softens it, that allows a person to carry their story without being crushed by it. For someone like Tom Cruise, whose life has been defined by motion, by striving, by never standing still, this shift would not be about becoming someone new. It would be about finally allowing himself to be enough as he is. Because beneath everything, the fame, the pressure, the relentless pursuit of perfection, there has always been a simple, human need. To be understood, to be accepted, to feel, even for a moment, that he doesn't have to keep proving anything anymore. And if that moment ever comes, it won't change the world's view of him. He will still be the same icon, the same legend in the eyes of millions. But for him, it might change everything. Because the greatest role he was ever meant to play was never written in a script, never directed, never performed under lights. It was the quiet, unspoken role of being himself, without expectation, without pressure, without the need to run. And maybe, just maybe, that is where his story truly finds its ending. Not in a final scene filled with action or triumph, but in a moment of peace so simple, so still, that it almost feels unfamiliar, yet finally, undeniably, his. And if that ending ever comes, it won't feel like an ending at all. It will feel like something he has been approaching his entire life without realizing it, a quiet return to himself. Not the version shaped by expectations, by fame, or by the constant need to be more, but the version that existed long before all of it began. The boy who once searched for safety, for belonging, for a place where the noise would finally stop. Maybe he will come to understand that he was never truly running toward something, but away from fear, from silence, from the echoes of a past that never fully let go. And in that realization, there may be no dramatic shift, no sudden transformation, just a slow, steady release. A loosening of everything he has held so tightly for so long. Because a life like his doesn't simply change overnight. It reshapes itself in small, almost unnoticeable ways. In the way he chooses to spend a quiet evening. In the way he looks at the world without needing to conquer it. In the way he allows certain memories to exist without trying to rewrite them. There may still be films. There may still be moments where the old fire returns, the desire to push boundaries, to create something unforgettable. But those moments might begin to feel different. Less like an escape and more like a choice. Less like something he needs and more like something he simply loves. And in between those moments, there will be space. Space that once felt unbearable, now becoming something softer. Something that no longer demands to be filled, but simply allowed to exist. Because in the end, after everything he has built, everything he has lost, and everything he has carried, the answer may be far simpler than the life he has lived. Not another role, not another achievement, not another attempt to outrun what follows him. Just acceptance. The kind that doesn't erase the past but makes peace with it. The kind that doesn't depend on the world watching, but exists quietly, steadily, within. And if he ever truly reaches that place, then all the running, all the striving, all the years spent searching might finally make sense. Not as a series of struggles to overcome, but as a path that led him, slowly and imperfectly, back to where he needed to be all along. Not at the top, not in the spotlight, but at peace with himself.